Hey y'all, what's up? It's Valcamy. It's been a minute for me. But child, the internet is a buzzing, and I had to come with my thoughts on this whole Meg the Stallion situation. Okay, so here's the thing. We are definitely in this video. We're going to cover the controversy over the lyric, the Megan's Law lyric. But I do want to spend some time to go over the astrology because that's what I enjoy doing. So we'll talk about some things because it is Aquarius season. Okay, Meg the Stallion is an Aquarius, so tis the transit for us to go over and discuss these very savage and cold streets, okay? Because this is the coldest time of the year. This is the middle of winter when we've traveled this transit, and his has left the girls frostbitten. Okay, Megan did not come to play. All right, so we would discuss many things, and first things first, let's get to the astrology of it all. So, since we're talking about the stage, right? We're now in the Aquarius transit, and this is the 11th of the 12 zodiacs, right? So we're almost at the end, almost at the finish. So when you think of this house, the 11th house, this is the principle that's kind of representing what you hope and wish for to come from a situation. For instance, when you first began any project, right, it may have been hard to envision what you truly hope for the project to be. Like you had an idea, but the more that project shaped and formulated, some things kind of got pushed back. Some things may have gotten enhanced, right? Like I like to think of it like this too. Like Michael Jordan, I don't think he knew what Jordan was before, it became what it was, right? Jordan is one of the biggest brands ever. And it just morphed into these things, right? So what he truly hopes and wishes for his brand now, right? Versus when it launched like 30 years ago is completely different, right? So this is that hopes and wishes part and aspect of our process. Now the work is done. I can now rest my mind assured on what it is I truly want to see from this thing that I'm working on. It's a very progressive nature too when you think about Aquarius, also, right? So this is going to be the planet in this house that's ruling it is Uranus. So Uranus is all about the humanitarian efforts, but it's about being revolutionary because that's what progress looks like, right? If I am constantly doing the same thing, right, that's a routine. But once I'm trying to change something, bring something into the future, right, I want to see it progress. I have to be like a rebel a lot of times, right? With or without a cause, right? But the ideal is that we are able to progress into what we want to see the future become, right? Bringing it into reality, which Saturn also co-rules this house, right? So personally, y'all, I love me some Aquarius energy. I just think it's a great place to be, especially when you think about your mental faculties, right? Um, because the water bearer, which is represented by this sign, right? This is the sign where all the thoughts, all the things that we felt, pretty much everything that went along with the process, right? We've been accumulating. And in this bucket of accumulation, there's a lot of fluid here. And this fluid is represented by our blood, our sweat, and our tears. Now we know mentally where we want to pour into a situation. Is powerful, y'all. Um, One of the best ways I can think about comparing it is like once you finally made up your mind on something, right? It's a phenomenal thing because you could have been indecisive. Now I got a Libra moon. I don't want to talk all about my chart though, right? Sometimes it could take your girl a minute to really, decide that I'm going to do something. So when I do embody that, it's just whew, I can give the mental faculties a break, right? And I can truly pour into what I want to see come. Because when you think about the water bearer, right, he's pouring into what direction. What do you put water in your garden, right? You put it on the seeds that you want to grow, right? So this water bearer, after going through the process, has now made up his mind that this is a place I want my garden to flourish, right? So it's a powerful thing. And those who are affected by this transit, ideally, this is where you have the strongest ideology around your desires, right? You've just made your mind up. So shout out to the 11th house. Now, this house is also represented by associations, friendships, okay? And the way that I love to break down Aquarius energy is like this, right? People look like ones. Like I look like a one standing up and down, right? I'm a little thick one, okay? But I look like a one, right? So one value is represented by me, okay? Now, that's and there's another value, right? The one that's external to me coming together, right? So these are the associates, the people who share the same ideas with me, right? And now these two ones come together and now we have more progression, right? As my homeboy Neo would say, I'm a movement by myself, but I'm truly a force when we're together. And this is the beautiful energy of the Aquarius house, the humanitarian, right? The idea that this is going to be for the highest good of me as well as for those who I'm associated with. So I love it. And let's just be for real, right? Let's think about this. How many times have we just celebrated the moment when somebody finally made up their mind when it came to like a group project, right? For example, let me give an example of this, right? Let's say you heard that Cat Williams was coming to Vegas, right? He's doing a residency. And you're like, man, I want to see Cat, right? Okay, maybe he's going to be doing a show three shows on a weekend. So it's like, I got to catch one of these shows. Now, when you first hear word, this is like the air element first kind of communicating, right? Gemini is going to be there to give you a lot of the intel. You finding information out, right? Seeing what's going on in your environment. Maybe you got to, take off work, whatever you got going on, right? But your first initial hearings of this is going to be Gemini. Now, as you begin to weigh things out and decide on who you want to go with, do you have the vacation time, right? Will your boss be letting you get off, right? If you got one, shout out if you don't. I'm trying to get like you, okay? But ultimately, right, you got to make decisions on these things, right? I heard about the Cat Williams concert, right? Now I've decided that, hey, this will work out, and so can hang out with me. So now my mind, so now I find that my mind is rest assured that this can progress, right? The future, the hope and the wish that I had to see Cat Williams is now about to come into reality, into fruition, right? Because we kept going with the process, right? We didn't just stop at hearing about the Cat Williams concert. We real life made decisions and choices on how to, and decided on how to get there, right? I'm traveling here, you traveling there, this is where we'll be staying, all of that, right? And then it was realized, right? Finally, what I hoped and wished to come true came into fruition. So I love this Aquarius energy, right? Now, I do want to talk about this too as well, right? So specifically for those who are born under the trans, as I like to say, or the transit, or if you're experiencing the transit, right, which is all of us, we all experience Aquarius vibes, right? Whenever we're here, we do realize the importance of associations, okay? Because again, this is your one-in-one, right? It's not just about what you know. A lot of times in life, it is about who you know. So this is going to bring me, and where we segue back to Meg the Stallion, okay? Because throughout her career, she has truly been known for her associations, right? Her high profile friendships, okay? I think at one point her and Nicki were even friends, right? I like that Hot Girl Summer record. I'm not a fandom of either one of these young ladies, right? Or Meg the Stallion, so she is the one who's taking center stage. But I have appreciated some of her songs, right? And I've noticed some of her friendships as well, right? And fallouts. Whether it was Trey Songz, honey, or I said Trey Songz. I keep calling that boy Trey Songz. Trey Songz, get out my fucking head. Tory Lanez, okay? Her friend Kelsey, right? She's been truly known for some of her associations, just like some people who she's kind of like popped up and been seen with, like, she was hanging out with Kelsey for a bit. Not Kelsey, Kylie Jenner, Kelly. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? And if you don't, child, go research. Okay. The point is that these individuals tend, like I said, they tend to associate, have friends a lot. In fact, she even says it like, hey, friend, that's such an Aquarius thing for her to even do. So typically what happens is with our associations, what we're really truly measuring is what's being generated behind it, right? Hence comes the opposite energy of Aquarius, which would be the 5th house. So you got to think about it like this from an Aquarius, right? She generated her start with 1501, right? They got her on the radio. She was a big old freak, okay? But then, sis just went savage when she got with Rock Nation, right? It's an upgrade. And it's one of those things when you think about your future and how you want things to progress, you don't always think about the regression. You don't always think about, well, this is where I started. No, it's about this is where I want to be in the future. And for sometimes these individuals, they're known to be a little cold-hearted, right? Because they can see where they want to go and how to climb the social ladder to get there. So when people call Meg a social climber, I don't think they're off on it. I think that's just one of the traits of Aquarius energy. And I don't think it necessarily has to be toxic, but in her case, child, I reserve the right to judge, okay? But I'm gonna move on for now. But that's the point. The point is that whatever progresses, right? You're thinking about what's being generated. And if 1501 can generate this for me and that was all good then, but what about my future, right? I really want to go here. I really want to see this created. I really want to entertain the ideal of having a L'Oreal, ad, or, the bigger things that bigger brands and bigger representation can bring you. So this is where we get the opposing energy of the fifth house to come in, right? Oftentimes whatever is being entertained is what we see progress. If I'm at a club and there's a guy who buys me a drink, right, he might be like, oh, okay, well, we gonna see where did I go, versus the guy that you shut down and be like, no, mm-mm. Right? There's no progress. There's no chance that this is going to go any further. So whatever we're entertaining based off what's being generated from the fifth house is what tends to progress, right? um I like to make this association too. Like, I like chess, right? So I tend to want to hang out with people who like chess. I might be at the chess club, right? This is how that works. I'm entertained by this, so I want to have friends that I can do the same things with, right? Who enjoy those things, okay? So the fifth house and the 11th house truly do the fifth house and the 11th house, they truly do complement each other. Now, until they don't. They complement each other truly until they don't. Okay, so let's break this down because I want to look at what has been generated from the Hiss record. Okay, one of the bars that was in this was the reference to Megan's Law. And personally, when I first heard it, I did not know Megan's Law. I didn't know what that was and what it pertained to. So I got educated, like all of us, kind of around the same time. And I'm like, oh, okay. But let me do this, right? Let me spotlight the law because I think that's important too. To get to the heart of the matter, I think Megan's Law is probably one of the most and one of the best examples of what humanitarian energy can truly do. When you decide to do what's not only good for you, but what's good for the highest of all concern. And shout out to Mr. Kanaka because he allowed a very tragic situation to turn into a triumphant one for so many others. And I think that's what Aquarius is all about. How he allowed his daughter's legacy to impact the lives of so many children and save them by making the awareness of who your neighbors are, who's around you, right? Making it a requirement if someone has harmed a child to make it public, to not just have these monsters among us. And I have a very personal story that I found relatable to it. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Kanaka because I can't imagine what that's like, having to go through what he went through. And I'm sure all of the uphill battles that were involved with getting this law passed, right? I can't imagine it, but I can imagine what that had to have been like to have to relive the pain of it. Relive telling the story. It had to be a journey. But he and his community and advocates made it possible so that our children will have an extra barrier of protection against those who will prey on the most vulnerable of society. So I think for me personally, just the way that people have tried to like marginalize this man's response is in poor taste. And I think what's even in like worse taste would to call this man a clout chaser. He does not need the clout off his daughter's death, right? But I think the fact that the fans are just so willing to like pull and reach for these things of, well, why is he upset? Why is he tripping? I think we're missing the context here, right? Megan's Law contextually was to bring awareness to people who live in the neighborhood or people who are predators so that they aren't just sitting in our neighborhoods with us unknown. In fairness, the petty situation we've known because of this law, right? But we know who he is. In fact, I mean, now, arguably, people don't always know like a person's spouse, right? So I don't think everybody knows who Nicki Minaj's husband is, or maybe even his background. But the ideal is that the law was intended to bring awareness so that don't have these, people who create these type of offenses to people, or to others, just out there like that, right? So therefore, job done. And to just be fair, right? I just kind of think that the idea that Meg would do this as a read, I think that's fair. I think this is hip hop. I think that's what you do, right? But I do think that she honestly could have made that aware without using Megan's Law. I mean, I think it was a great, clever way and play on words, right? It gave people the controversy that it needs, right? But here's the thing: when you say controversial things, when you entertain fifth house controversial things, they have a tendency to progress. That's the caveat of the freedom of speech. And that's what I feel like people, and sometimes this younger generation, and I mean, it may not even be the younger generation, yeah, I think it's old folks who don't get this too, but I do think there's like this caveat that you can say what you want to say, yes, but you also sometimes have to deal with the backlash of it, right? And this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about a little bit of the alchemy that works in between the fifth house and the 11th house, right? Because again, whatever you entertain does progress, right? The things that feel good to say sometimes does have an outcome that will correspond to the future, right? So how do we alchemize this? How can we just try to make sure that we can keep it in balance? Well, when you add 11 and 6, you're going to get 16, and that 1 and 6 is going to reduce to a 7. So the way that we find the alchemy of the opposing energies of what you want to create, right? What you entertain by, what makes you feel good, and ultimately how that affects the highest good of others, your humanity of the situation, it's through the choices that you make, right? It's through the decisions that we make. It's truly through the scales of Libra. This is where it gets decided. So again, I think it was a bar, right? Was it a savage bar? Absolutely, right? It was cold. But I don't think that it was considered and weighed up who might be offended. Considering that this might be, cool for the culture, right? But is it harmful to somebody? Is it insensitive? And I think it is. I think it's absolutely insensitive to take someone's true tragedy and the spirit of the movement of Megan's Law and then reduce it to the fact that you want, because you mad at somebody, you're going to bring it up, right? I don't think this young lady's movement should be reduced to rap beef. I would have liked to have come across Megan's Law in another way. The other part of this, though, is that, especially for the people who don't understand why, like, other people who aren't personally tied to this story, why they might feel offended, I want to share a story with you all about me. So, there was a young girl in my city. Her name was Tyra Knox. And I want to say that she was about the same age that Megan was. And she was abducted, and they found her in an abandoned house later, and she was deceased. And it was a very terrible thing. But this young lady lived about 2 blocks away from me. And what was strange about that situation is it took them a while to find the predator, but they finally did. And my story was, I think, connected to hers. So I was 14. I hadn't turned 15 yet. I remember it was my birthday month, and I was excited because we were going to go to the fair the next day. And my mom, she had went out of town. Not out of town. She was, I say out of town, but she actually just went to the casino. So she was over there at the casino, which was like a little ways away from where we lived. And I knew it was going to be a minute. So now I had my little thing. You know how teenagers are. And so I invited him over so that we could spend some time together. And we did. And he left about 12 midnight. So I fell asleep at some time after that, after I was on the phone with him. And at some point, I woke up. And when I woke up, I had felt somebody touching my thigh. There was a hand on my thigh. And it's nighttime, so there's like a night light. My door is open. I think there's a night light from the restroom. And there's a figure. And there's a silhouette. And I don't recognize him. But I'm so tired and sleep, I don't even scream, y'all. I'm just laying in the bed. And he touched my thigh and I woke up. And I remember it was quiet for a minute. Now this happened fast, but this is my mind's process. And I remember waking up and it was just quiet for a minute. Like I didn't scream. But he said something like, "Oh yeah, I'm so and so, so and so. I live up the street." And he was about to say something else, and then he just struck out and ran. And I'm still in my bed, and I'm just shocked. I'm like, I'm confused, I'm shocked, but I'm scared. I'm 14. I'm scared. My mom isn't home. Like we didn't even have cell phones back then, y'all. I could have paged my mama, but we didn't. It wasn't like that kind of a communication and stuff like that going on like we have now. So I eventually I get the strength and the courage to get out of my bed, and I go into the hallway and walk down, and I go into the kitchen, and our kitchen door is wide the fuck open. I close the door. My little brother was in the house, and I locked us in the bedroom until my mom got home. And when they finally found him who did this to Tyra Knox, he looks very similar to that silhouette. Now, this was some years that had passed between the time that he had done what he had did to Tyra Knox. So I just remember, y'all, you just never know. And I am so grateful that I was lucky. I am so grateful that that man got scared. Because I don't know. I mean, I was 14. There's no way I would have been able to fight him off. And I just think sometimes, we don't consider how triggering these stories are. Like, I personally don't watch a lot of crime shows. I mean, I will sometimes. I do like to watch the femicide stories because I think their stories are very important to hear. But, some people find crime entertaining. I mean, that's not I don't judge nobody for it. It's just the thing I don't, right? So personally, I don't always like to walk in on these type of things because it does, I'm sensitive to it. But I've always been sensitive to like these kind of things. I mean, that happened to me when I was young. I was 14. So I was triggered. I completely understand why Mr. Kanaka felt how he felt and why he was triggered. And anybody else, and another person may not have that same personal story. Of course, we all have very unique lives, but we can all understand that the level of pain and tragedy that is associated with situations like that. And I am so grateful. I am so grateful. But when I hear people say things like, well, why would you be mad? Why would somebody be mad? Like, I think Moniece had a pretty strong reaction. It's like, y'all, this is for real. What's a moment in a hip-hop beef and a line or some entertainment for somebody is somebody else's fucking tragic outcome, a future that they would hope and wish to change, but they can't, because you cannot always go back and undo what's been done, right? So I think where the line for me just gets drawn is like the boundary. I don't know if the man has any legal recourse, but if I feel like if he does, he has every right to exercise it. If something was misrepresented or taken out of context, or and again, this could just be him being upset, and he has a right to be upset. But whatever happened to a time when people were more sensitive to say, you know what, I didn't consider that. I know that I was mad at so and so, so and so, and maybe I did use my toxic Aquarius trait to take a real humanitarian issue and make it about my bullshit, Maybe I did, and maybe I should apologize, because people catch strays a lot of times off of the fact that somebody wanted to use a moment to be entertaining. And let's not forget, too, the thing about Meg, and this is another thing with Meg, this is the same woman who was saying protect black women like a trope. When she was drunk with her friends and had a tantrum and allegedly a fight, and what could have or may not have been an actual attempt on her life, and maybe she stepped on glass. We don't know, Um, I have a lot of questions about that whole situation. But beyond that, right? Let's talk about the protect black woman trope that she used. There are literal women who are stalked and abused, and the police or the policing of their predators and perpetrators, there's little to nothing you can do about it. Watch some of these femicide channels. A lot of these victims try, they get restraining orders and they still end up hurt or worse. So when you use a real humanitarian issue for your own bullshit because you can handle your liquor or your private area, and there's this eggplant betrayal that somehow went down, and one thing leads to another, and now all of a sudden it's like, we'll protect black women. But where is that same energy now for the women who truly need their protection? Because she's got a great platform and she has a lot of reach. So why aren't we having national conversations about what I feel is very important? Because I have a daughter, I'm still a young woman. I date, I ain't that young, child, but you get it, you know what I'm saying? Like, anything could happen. So if you're going to say things like protect black women, you should mean it. If you're going to try to truly bring awareness to these humanitarian issues, like, you should truly mean it. It shouldn't just be used, as an ace in the hole type situation on your ops. Like, don't marginalize people's real life experiences and traumas and pain, and just make it a moment for you. So this is my issue personally. Now that I've said all of that, okay, I know everybody isn't going to agree, but I do think it's a really interesting question, and I think it's a bigger question for humanity outside of Meg the Stallion, right? Because she's one person. She actually has a team, right? Shame on the whole team, honestly, okay? But I do wonder, like, can humanity, and is humanity ready to have that conversation? Are we truly understanding what we're producing based off what's being generated, right? And what these outcomes are? And are we truly ready to be informed to make the best decisions for the highest good of all concerned, so that we can alchemize the power of generating and entertainment and what feels good to us, and really consider how that may affect someone else, so that we don't lose sight of our humanity? Because some of the comments, and just some of the stuff that I saw, the internet's an ugly place sometimes. So, but those are my thoughts, y'all. Honestly, it's been a minute since I've been back, and I have been wanting to do an Aquarius kind of transit video. So this is perfect, right on time for me. And I've enjoyed this. I hope that I see you guys soon. Y'all take care and love each other. Let's figure it out. If this is the age of Aquarius, we just got some work to do to try to figure out one another. That's all. But that's all that I got for y'all. Take care. Balcony, and I'm out. Bye.